Raul Lopez Jr. here, sitting here at the Impact and Income Incredible Podcast Studio over here in Carlsbad, California. I do events here every quarter, whether they be on a virtual stage, just like what you're looking at now, or downstairs. There's an incredible permanent live in-person stage, and I invite you to come and check it out one day. You can message me, you can email me, comments, wherever you see this. If you're interested in doing events, always reach out to me. If you're a speaker, an author, or a coach, I always have a place for you to sit with me, interview you, or get on my stages. Today, my guest is Mark Ayala. He's an incredible guy. I've known this guy for a few years. Really inspiring on social media, on TikTok, and everywhere that I see him. We have a like mind and similar backgrounds, so I thought I'd bring him out today and just have a great conversation. Mark, tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Mark Ayala, currently living in Bakersfield, California. I'm a solar expert, been doing it for 4 years, but I've studied a lot to get me to where I'm at. I've done the Master NLP Practitioner. I became a Master Hypnotherapist.
Oh, nice.
Published author. I wrote a journal specifically for solar.
Oh, cool. Right on. Right on. So this is what's cool is, impact and income. We do a lot of work with entrepreneurs. And sometimes people say, what's your target? Who are you working with? And when I say entrepreneur, it's people just like Mark, all industries. So, right, loan officers, solar, insurance, authors, speakers, coaches, what I call anybody that's in the people business, right? If you're kind of a solopreneur per se, maybe you have 1 or 2 people on your team, but you're the one out there that's doing the work and making your own money and helping and serving people. These are the people that I love to interview. And if you think about it, it doesn't matter even if you're a dentist. Some dentists are even considered just solopreneurs, right? But they have a little bit of a staff. But it doesn't matter what you do in your life as a business. A lot of us, most of us, or hopefully most of us, are into self-development, right? Mark comes out, he says, this is my background. I'll let him tell you more about it. But he can say, this is my background, and this is when I got into solar, and this is why. But in addition to that, he's an NLP hypnosis practitioner and expert, right? So you'll never know who you meet sometimes. Like if you meet and you say, hey, what do you do for a living? And they say, oh, I'm a steel worker, right? You don't know what kind of self-development they're in. So it's great, and I love to sit and interview with people. So let's get into some of the reasons why you decided to get into hypnosis and NLP.
All right, so just to go back to my childhood, I'll do the quick version. When I was 15, ran away from home, got involved with gangs, got addicted to crystal meth for 10 years.
Wow.
So in and out of jail. So I was blessed. Once I got clean, I got a grant through the government to get my truck driver license. Mm-hmm. So I was a truck driver for 15 years. And being that I'm an 8th grade dropout, it felt like that was my best option.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do with no school?
Yeah.
So the problem is I was miserable for 15 years. It's like you work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, living paycheck to paycheck, beating up your body, eating out of gas stations. It's not until you're absolutely fed up with your life that you decide to start searching for something better. So that's when I started listening to YouTube videos. The very first person I found was Tony Robbins.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too.
So he had a big influence on me. I went to one of his events in 2017, the UPW, mm-hmm. and I came back a changed person. I was like, I gotta do something else. So that's what kind of led me to researching, and I landed in the sales industry. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of negative things in my life. So I heard Tony Robbins talk about NLP. Mm-hmm. So that's what got me researching. Went and learned NLP, took the next step to Master NLP Practitioner, Master Hypnotherapist, and I started applying those skills to myself. See, I had a lifetime of just trauma, negativity, so I had to completely rewire my mind. Mm-hmm. And I did that through self-hypnosis, just blocking out everything outside of my life, only allowing good information into my mind. And that's how I started changing the way I think.
Wow, man. That's so awesome. Again, I had said earlier that we have similar stories. I started doing self-development a long time before I actually discovered Tony Robbins. But I'll tell you, I had all these ideas of things I wanted to do, including TED Talks. This was before I even wrote a book. I was like, oh, I want to write a book. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I was already working with juvenile juvenile. I say working, but volunteering in juvenile hall based on my background. I wanted to go help these kids not end up the way I did, right? But I had all these ideas of great things I wanted to do, and then I went to a Tony Robbins event, and the exact same thing. It just like, whoa, my goodness! Like I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I don't know. I think this was 2012, 13, somewhere around there. But I would go to the same event every year. Every time he came to California, I would be there, man. I even volunteered one time, right? I mean, yeah, you know, you can volunteer and you can help and all that kind of thing. And I mean, it was cool because it was like a free way to get to the event, right? To get to volunteer. But anyhow, I remember I volunteered one time, and me and like 10 other people, we got this big Airbnb. We're all volunteers, and we would drive back and forth to the venue. And I was telling these guys, man, I'm going to start this speaking company, and I'm going to write my book, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I was just telling them all these ideas that I had just being fired up from Tony. And one day, probably, I don't know, 8, 9 years later, all this was going on. I've written 8 books now. I have, you know, my speaking form. I've done hundreds of events, but tons of events all over the place. And one of the guys called me, and I didn't even remember that we were in the same place, you know, doing volunteering together. He's like, Raul, man, I just want to tell you, I've been following you, dude, and you did everything you said you were going to do, man. You wrote your book, you're doing events, you're helping people. He's like, man, it's so cool. I'm so proud of you. And I was like, thanks, man. Like, you know, I was all excited about it, and I was like, man, it was good to hear.
Yeah.
Because how often, and I think I've even heard you say this in your talks, how often do we beat ourselves up about the things that are not working and not look at all the successes that we've had, right? We are just worried about the things that are not working instead of, look how far I've come, man. I mean, you were smoking meth a while back, you know, a long time ago, but you were smoking meth, and look where you're at today. You know, I'm life, business, and everywhere else. And same thing for me. I was in prison, you know? So we have to look at the things that help us change and the changes that we've made. And right before I turn it back over to you, the similarity we have in that also is, like, I did go through the Tony Robbins coaching program to be a coach. I went through Augmentinos. I went through these different programs, leadership and things like that. But they were all for me. I did not take these courses and go, oh, I'm going to go be a coach. I took them so I can figure me out, right? I figured, hey, if I learn how the coaches teach and learn, then I'm also fixing myself. So a lot of my skills come from the streets, right? I mean, there's a lot of wisdom that comes from the streets, right? I think you could talk about that too. And then I ended up having an academic career per se. I went to college after getting out of prison and the whole thing, and then all the self-development and finding God and all that kind of stuff we can get into too. But all of that wisdom comes together, puts us in a room like this where we want to help other people grow. And I'm going to pass it to you because I also want to talk about, you can jump in on anything that I just said, but I also want to talk about, even with all the self-development, how we still fall sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's part of the journey, and what I've learned from being from different companies, one of my superpowers is the ability to pick myself up from rock bottom. Because I fell on my ass a lot of times. Like, funny things happen in the solar industry. You'll run into shady characters. I've been ripped off for all my commissions.
Jeez, yeah.
And left to the point where I don't even know how I'm going to pay my rent.
Yeah.
The thing is, I know how to bounce back. That's the difference between me and a lot of people that are not in the solar industry no more. They came and went because the first time they fall, they can't get back up. So discipline is something that has tremendously helped me in my life. You're never going to, there's always obstacles. Every new level, there's another obstacle. And you just got to keep going through it.
So tell me how you can discipline. You said discipline is part of it. Where did you gain, where can you see yourself gaining discipline from the streets and then also from self-development?
Man, from the streets is where I learned to suffer. I was homeless for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of by choice because I don't want to give up the drugs and go back to mom and dad. So you do whatever it takes to survive on the streets. If you got to look for an open car door to sleep in it, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Not eating for days, staying up nights at a time, getting incarcerated. There's a lot of things that happen. And so I've been through a lot of hard shit in my life. So I feel that builds character. It makes you strong-willed. So now that I don't have those problems, I purposely create hard things in my life.
Interesting.
It's I've learned it from many different people that I look up to. Self-inflicted adversity. So one thing that I do is I'm up by 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Every day. It doesn't matter if I go to sleep at midnight. It's part of my routine.
Yeah.
I have to listen to audiobooks when I wake up. I have to, well, not that I have to, I choose to, I want to.
Yeah.
I want to be reading. I'm constantly learning. And what I've seen in the solar industry is I run laps around all these young guys because I have discipline. I do hard shit before my day even starts.
Yeah.
I wake up early, I'm reading, I'm listening to audios, I go to the gym, and people are barely waking up when I'm done with my routine.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right, so when we're in the streets and we're in the darkness and all those types of things, and when I was young, I did a lot of drinking and drugs and things. But blessings for me is I never got addicted, right? I never got addicted to anything where I became homeless and things like that, because I do see a lot of people who are homeless, and they're usually young, right? Young men, young women, and they do, honestly, like you just said, they do have a place to go, but they're addicted, so like nobody will receive them. If you're going to stay addicted, you got to clean yourself up. It's a sad thing, but it's a reality, and you lived it. But that day-to-day commitment to survive, right, in a negative environment, it makes it easier for us when we're not in that environment anymore, because it's like, man, I was in freaking San Quentin prison. Like, what I mean? It's like, I'll sleep anywhere. Like, I'd rather sleep on the floor somewhere than be there. You know what I mean? It's like, it just makes things easier. And I remember just even over my life during hard times, I'd be like, I honestly, I mean, do I want to sleep in on a floor somewhere, or do I want to be broke and those types of things? Heck no. But I could, I could. I don't ever want to put myself there, but I could. And it's like, do what I got to do and pick myself back up, right? Because I know that's not going to be the end. And now, let me say this. That's easy to say, right? That's easy to say, and it's the truth. But when we're in it, that's the hard part. That's where you got to talk to yourself and go, wait a second. This sucks. Like, I feel like giving up or whatever it is, but I'm not. I know I can make it through this, right?
Yeah. I'm all into whatever I do. When it was the drugs and gangs, I was all in, and it took me 10 years till I finally gave up. But just being in that environment where you're in danger every single day. I've been shot at like several times. I got stabbed. But now as I'm older, the wisdom from that is life is nothing compared to that. I could walk fearlessly through life, and I know God has my back.
Good.
Because I've survived everything that's way worse than the things we go through in life.
I love it. That's really good. So we'll wrap up with this. We've been going for a little bit now, but you said something that I think is a double-edged sword, right? And I know what you meant, but I just want to make it clear here. Like you hear the term "do hard things," right? So get up at 4 a.m., do this, do that, and kind of creating. I don't want to say creating the hard time, because nobody wants to create a hard time, but doing hard things, waking up at 4 a.m. every morning, cold plunge. You ever done a cold plunge? That's not easy to do. Like, you see a lot of people, it's not easy to do. You get in there once or twice, over a month's time, whatever it is, and you look at it the next time, you're like, it's not easy to do, and it's actually healthy for you, right? But it's not easy to do. So doing hard things, I get it. Like, we got to force ourselves to do these hard things, and it reprograms our mind and keeps us strong. But the other side that comes from the streets, that honestly, even at my age, and that's why I was saying earlier, we still fall. We always fall, right? And we have to have that resilience to come back up, right? We have, divorce, we have breakups with the girl of our dreams, and we have all these things that happen to us, and we got to come back from it, But what I do know is the things we choose when we say do hard things are always for the better. But what I learned about myself is that, and I learned this recently in the last 3 years, is that I am used to, in my youth, living in chaos, right? Used to it, subconsciously used to living in chaos. So now, in these last 3 years, I've discovered that I create chaos when my life is real smooth. When there's no turbulence, when everything's running smooth, subconsciously I'll create something. My mind will look for something wrong and make it wrong, because I'm subconsciously. I mean, think about this. From the age of 9, I started doing drugs, like we're talking about. At 13, I had my first child, and I was in gangs and drinking and alcohol and all this stuff. And then at 14, I got incarcerated. For the most part, the next 10 years, I got out of prison when I was 24. So that's all chaos. I mean, whether because you're looking behind your back, you're wondering what's happening. You're on the streets. Is somebody going to attack you? Somebody going to stab you? Somebody going to shoot you? There's so much things that are happening during that type of lifestyle. You are living in chaos, and I didn't realize it. But even after I did the self-development and I found God and all these things, like people tell me all the time, they notice when I go into a restaurant, I sit with my back against the wall. It's just a natural thing. Like I'll walk in, and if somebody goes and sits by the wall, I'll go, "Hey, can I sit there?" Like just nicely. Like it's just, can I sit there? Hey, can I sit there? Like why? I don't know. I just rather sit there. Like I want to see what's around me. And in my mind, I'm not even thinking, well, somebody might come in, somebody might attack me, somebody might this, somebody might that. But it's just, hey, I'd rather sit right there, right? It's just how I feel comfortable. And it's funny because we have this same thing as, being an ex-convict per se. But this woman I was dating, she was a sheriff for 15 years, right? She had the same thing though. She knew where every exit was at. We'd walk into a room. She wanted her back on the wall. It was the same thing. Like we just have that in us. So it's two different sides of the fence per se, but we do create hard things in a negative realm also. So to create the hard things that we want, outstanding. Wake up early, read your books, do cold plunge, go work out, go exercise and all these things, yes, to keep the resilience. But we also have to be aware of the subconscious mind and the life you've come out of. And I don't care how long ago it was. I've been out of prison for 30 years, right? But there are people to this day that'll look at me and say, there's something about you. And I'll be like, what? And one guy, he happened to be a cop too. He was a retired cop. He said, you were either in the military or in prison. Which one was it? And I just looked at him. He's like, I can tell by your demeanor, right? Mm-hmm. Most people can't if they haven't been a cop or in prison. But there's always something, like there's something about you. And in fact, yesterday I met a guy, and I want you to tell me about your experiences with this too. Yesterday I met a guy and I was talking to him, and he just looked at me and he goes, you're looking at me stone cold in the eye. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'm just looking at you. We're talking, so I'm looking at you, right? And he's like, that's called meekness. He said, do you know what meekness means? And honestly, I didn't. I was like, is it some form of a weakness? He's like, no. He says, meek, do you know what it means? I just learned this. He goes, meekness means that you can be nice, and you're purposely being nice and respectful, but you can also be a killer. He goes like that. And I said, you know what? I said, I don't like to say that, and I would never harm anybody. Honestly, even if somebody attacked me, unless I literally really had to physically defend myself, I would. I said, but if you mess with my family, you better watch out. Like, you'll see a whole new guy if you mess with the family or somebody I love. I said, so I'm not walking down the street faking like I'm a nice guy. I am a nice guy today, right? And I'm not like, you step on my toe and I'm going to beat you up. Nothing like that. But yeah, I can be turned on like an lion if you mess with my grandkids or my kids or something like that. You know what I mean? So tell me about you and maybe some experiences like that.
That's funny that you said that about. I'm the same way. When I go into a restaurant, my back has to be against the wall.
Yeah.
I need to know what's coming. I think that's just from our past and our awareness.
Yeah.
But I think it was Jordan Peterson that says that you should be a monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're capable of extreme violence. Mm-hmm. But you choose to be humble. Mm-hmm. You choose to be a good person. Yeah. But yeah, I totally relate to that. That's why I'm glad I experienced everything that I went through. Mm. I was on the opposite side of positive. So I got to experience basically hell. Mm. And I've been trying to find my way back to heaven ever since. But I've experienced both worlds. And I choose to do good. I choose to be the best person I could possibly be.
Amen. Yeah. So we choose that, and I think most people do, and I think we can agree on this. Although I don't advise anybody to do drugs or go into prison or anything like that. When you've lived that life, I wouldn't take it back. I've lived what I've lived, and I do believe it happened for me, not to me, and that's how we're sitting here together now, and why I do these live speaking events. Again, if you're a speaker, an author, a coach, and you want to be, reach out. I'll get you on stages. But what I do, who knows where I would be today if I'd gone straight to school and college, and who knows where I'd be, good or bad. But I'll never take back or wish or regret my life. Like I said, I don't wish it on anybody else, but it's molded me into being the person I am today. And I never stop growing. I'm always learning it. And I still have downs, but I'm able to come back up. I've been in darkness, in the last 3 years, honestly, just due to life changes and things that have been happening to me. But here I am. Here we are. You know what I mean? So close us off, Mark, with your final thoughts. Let us know what your TikTok or your Instagrams are, so people can find you, and then I'll close right after you.
I'm glad you said that, because I had that revelation probably less than a year ago. I started pondering and thinking on life. There's not one thing that I would change. And I've done a lot of bad things. I've hurt a lot of people in my family, a lot of women in my life. If you change one little piece of your past, everything else wouldn't exist today.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everything happens for a reason. It's just part of the life journey. And it's what makes us strong. It's what builds faith in God, because we've gone through so many obstacles, so many trials and tribulations. And without it, I wouldn't be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to thank you so much for having me on here. I'm glad I got to come out here.
Yeah, me too.
But if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Maverick369. Same thing on TikTok. But thank you, Raul.
You're welcome. So Maverick, spell it.
Maverick 369, and it's got a picture of Tom Cruise, Top Gun.
Oh, Maverick. Okay, cool. There you go. All right. Typical. No, thank you, Mark, for being here. We're going to be here actually for the next 2 days for the Impact and Income event. We'll have more events coming. If you happen to see this today, let me know. I'll give you a guest. You can come as my guest. You can come as Mark guest. So these next 2 days is going to be a powerful talks, really similar to what we're talking about now. People that have gone through the darkness and now they're into the light and still recognizing, being transparent in who they are, the things that happened to us today, right? There's no ending in my book. I've gone through a lot of healing, a lot of growth, but things still happen. And here we go. We just keep going and keep keep pushing through, keep healing, keep growing, and hang in there. So find me on, you can find me anywhere on Raul Lopez Jr. I go by Raul Lopez Jr. There's a million Raul Lopez's. So if you look Raul Lopez Jr., you'll find me just about on any social media platform. You can go to tagtalks.org, tagtalks.org. You can find some of our stuff there. Anywhere you find me, if you send a comment or an email, it usually will come directly to me in some form, in some way. So we'll see you soon at an event. We'll see you soon sitting here on the podcast studio. Enjoy the day. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you, Mark, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, buddy. Bye.